Hey everyone, Amia here from Resonance Astrology and welcome to my channel. And if you're new here, hi, welcome to my channel. This is obviously an astrology-based channel, and if you're here, I'm assuming you're curious about horoscopes. On this channel, we go in depth into horoscopes here and there. We also take deep dives into certain archetypal zodiac sign patterns and all of that. We also do weekly overviews and everything like that. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to stay tuned. Maybe also hit the subscribe button already. But today's video, we will be taking a look at Jupiter in Cancer, and we will be going through all the 12 zodiac signs so that you know what this transit means for you. Now, I'm doing this a bit differently because I made a whole presentation and everything. I'm also dressed up all in blue, for Cancer, all of that. I'm wearing my moon necklace. I'm wearing my blue makeup today. So today is getting blue, okay? And I'm super excited for this upcoming transit, Jupiter in Cancer. I'm sure most of you are, because most of you also know that Jupiter does extremely well in the sign of Cancer, but there's obviously also a bit of a twist here and there because not all benefics in their best position are just good, and there can certainly be a overwhelm of growth and expansion and things happening way too fast. So, there's always a shadow and a light side to things. And this is really what we are going to explore today. And now, let me share my screen, surely but slowly, so we can start with a presentation. And yeah, we're definitely going to talk about the archetypes of Jupiter, of Cancer, of Jupiter in Cancer, what it also means for the collective themes, and then we're gonna go step by step through the zodiac signs. The descriptions, or sorry, the timestamps will be down in the description below. So, Jupiter in Cancer, horoscopes for all 12 zodiac signs. I hope you guys are excited as I am. Before we take a full deep dive, is this working? Can I go one step ahead? Okay, great. I do just briefly want to promote the Decadence workshop that is coming on Sunday, June 15th, 2025. If you're completely new here to this channel, or maybe you just watch my horoscopes videos, which is fine, like, don't blame you for that at all. There's so much more to astrology, though, that we can find out. And something that is extremely, extremely fascinating to me are the decans. The decans are um, okay, let me put it this way. A zodiac sign is 30 degrees, right? And so when we split that zodiac sign in three parts, which are all 10 degrees, so the first 10 degrees, middle 10 degrees, and last 10 degrees, these are what constitute the decans or the decans. People say it differently in different ways. I tend to go with decans. And so every decan is ruled by another planet, which gives us a much more deeper flavor into knowing how a certain zodiac sign plays out depending on in which decan it is going through in transit wise, but also in our natal charts. If you have certain planets in certain decans, they will express differently than in other decans. So, depending on if you have the sun in Gemini at like 5 degrees, or 11 degrees, or 28 degrees, it's all going to be in a different decan. It's going to express itself very differently. And this is really what me and Duna, made this decan dance workshop for. And we've already gone through Aries and Taurus. And this Sunday, I mean, it's not this Sunday, but the next Sunday on June 15th, 2025, we are doing the Decan workshop on the decans of Gemini. And it's happening on Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Central European Time, which is depending on where you are in the world. We did it in consideration for American folks because there's lots of people from America usually joining us. So for y'all from America, from the US, it is around like midday. So I think it's a good time for people to join. Nevertheless, if you can't make it live, we do send out the recording, so you don't have to be there live. Just if you're live, you are getting a chance to Also put your birth chart up and we can discuss your specific decans in more depth. One workshop is $11, pretty generous. And if you want to sign up for the whole year, you can do that whenever you want. It's gonna save you a bit of money, and we priced it at only $111. And if you join now, you are also automatically getting the recordings of Aries and Taurus as well. So, you're really not missing out on anything. And the link to sign up is in the description below. Also, if you're not completely unsure, maybe you just want to know a bit more about the Decans, then we also have free YouTube videos where we are talking about them briefly. You can find them on my channel, or also in the playlist, The Decan Dance. So you can, get a bit of a taste and flavor of what we are going to talk about, because the workshops are much more in depth, are much more interactive, and I'll be super happy seeing you here. And we're in Gemini season now, so we're talking about Gemini, but the next decans will be Cancer, will be super prevalent with Jupiter being in Cancer. So, just keep that in mind, because the next one we're going to talk about is Cancer, and I'm sure that's going to be interesting for a lot of people. So, but now let's talk about Cancer, because Cancer is the highlight this for this video, not Gemini necessarily. Um, with Cancer, let's just briefly go over some basic things. Cancer is yin cardinal water. What does that mean? Yin is a feminine sign, okay? And I don't even mean that in a gender way. The gender norms are very useful in certain ways, but it depends on how you are viewing them, right? That's why I like to use yin and yang a bit more, because it's more talking about the energetic type of a certain element. Yin, feminine, means it's more internally oriented. Things are happening in an internal process, they're not outwardly oriented. And all the water and earth signs are yin elements. The fire and the air signs are yang elements. And currently, as of now, just before Jupiter moves into Cancer, we are having like so much uh, air and fire in the cosmos right now. There's practically just so much yang energy in the air, which is great, right? It's very initiatory. Cancer is obviously also initiatory too, because it's a cardinal sign. But I definitely feel like it's a very welcomed change. We're definitely going to miss some Earth, although I know that Venus is going to be traveling through Taurus, so we're going to have a bit of Earth, the goddess in her Earth element. But yeah, things are definitely heading into a very earthy, airy, and fiery era, okay? So I feel like Cancer here is just bringing in this beautiful water element, just, you know, dimming things down just a bit more, because we need internal processes too. When I say initiatory here, what I mean is that all the cardinal signs are initiatory. All the cardinal signs rule over the start of each season, because Cancer, this when the sun ingresses into Cancer is when we celebrate the summer solstice, at least here in the northern hemisphere. But even in the other hemisphere, a new season is starting too. So all the cardinal signs are the initiation of a new season. That's why they are initiatory. And for us here in the northern hemisphere, we are getting initiated in the summer with the element of water. And what's also interesting is that with the summer solstice, even though we are celebrating summer, technically it's when the days start getting shorter again. The darkness slowly begins taking over again. Of course, we don't necessarily feel that completely, right? Because it's the height of the summer, and then like Leo season chimes in and it's like super hot, right? But still, there is something to be said about the quality of Cancer and just the quality of the crab, which rules over the ocean, the depths of the ocean, and all of that. And when I also think of cardinal water, I think of a spring or somewhere where like the initial source of water starts. So there's something interesting about the descending quality of Cancer too, which makes so much sense with its The shell of Cancer, which is a retrieving quality. The Cancer can hide if things are getting too much. Um, so this is why I wrote hard shell, soft heart. That's what I think you can say that in English. I'm not quite sure actually. I know in German we say harte Schale, weicher Kern. So technically it would literally translate to hard shell, soft inside, I guess. But which is also true, right? It's also true. So it's interesting how Cancer, has this protective shell over it, but like the inside is actually very soft. When we look at the sign of Cancer, in every sign, we need to understand dignity. Cancer is ruled by the moon. This is the temple of the moon and the exaltation of Jupiter. It is also the fall of Mars and the detriment of Saturn, which is interesting, right? So both the malefic planets don't do well in the sign of Cancer, which is why the way that Cancer fights is completely different than some of the other signs that have much stronger malefic components to them. Um, Also, again, obviously opposing its opposite sign, Capricorn, which has both the malefics doing extremely well there. But this is the quality which we can see why Cancer needs that protective shell because it has a very hard time protecting itself otherwise, okay? There's a lack of boundaries, It's like the moon and Jupiter, okay? We're expanding, we're flowing, we're changing. Where are the boundaries? Where are, you know, what happens if we have to set up a fight and all of that? So this is where Cancer struggles a bit. Um, but I don't want to dwell too much on the bad qualities of Cancer, because we all experienced Mars going through Cancer at the retrograde period with Mars and Cancer. So we know we've experienced that. And I actually think it's super interesting. And I have to say it's super interesting. Gosh, I say this word too much. I'm so sorry, guys, but it is super interesting. Um, to me, it feels like everything that we have been going through that was probably super harsh during the Mars retrograde period in Cancer is now getting this generous, abundant boost of like that what you went through. Now you're getting the rewards of that. Like if you really put in the work, now you're getting the rewards of that. It's a bit of a Saturnian quality too, but I really feel like this is kind of coming. We're getting if any sort of wounds were open there, now we're getting the band-aid for that. So this is what makes me personally really excited. We're also entering extremely fertile waters. Okay. Cancer, the moon rules over fertility. Jupiter does as well. Jupiter is about growth and expansion, and what happens if you get pregnant can be in a literal way, but because obviously not everyone watching this video is pregnant or wants to get pregnant or can even get pregnant. We get life inside us that needs 9 months to expand into growth and to be birthed. That is Jupiter Cancer. Okay. Things that are coming into our body right now, impregnating us, ideas, visions, whatever, is growing, sprouting, blooming, waiting to be born. This is what I mean with the fertile waters of Cancer. Okay, don't take it necessarily in a literal way. We can look at it in a metaphorical way of just getting impregnated with something that needs time to grow and develop and then, be birthed life into. It's also a very body-based sign. Okay, the moon, yes, the moon is emotions. It's very much the body in and of itself too, like the whole body. Even in medical astrology, when we look at the moon, we can find out the constitution of someone and some of the difficulties because the moon rules the whole body. Emotions are body-based, right? When you feel something, you feel it in certain parts of the body. Heartbreak, you obviously feel it in the heart, but you can also feel pain in the stomach. Okay, it's all connected. This is what Cancer reminds us of, and especially with Jupiter and Cancer will also remind us of, is how we can get more into the body. Because I think for most of us, it's not something that is easily done, especially not in the Western society that is very prone to um, limiting the mind or the emotions only to the head and talking about them instead of really feeling them. And I think this will be a very important lesson for most of us. How can I get more in my body and lead within my body? Because the expansion of Jupiter is a bodily experience. And if things come into our lives that are demanding that expansion within us, our body needs to be ready to receive it, okay? But let me not get too much ahead of myself because we will talk about this in the Jupiter slide. There's also a very tribal communal aspect to the sign of Cancer. Okay, it's very like my family. And again, family does not have to be blood related family, it can also be chosen family. But there's something very tribal about Cancer. We also, the crab bucket theory uh, is very prevalent here. If you don't know, it's when you put crabs into a bucket. If one wants to get out, instead of the other crabs like helping or whatever, they pull the other crab down. It's like a if you can't make it up, none of us can. Which is okay, like it's just like a bit of a group mentality thinking, which can be positive or negative. As always, as always, there's always extremes, which we can go to. I do think that's good and important to mention. Also, protective. Cancer is very protective. I also put in brackets environment because Cancer is very aware of its environment. The moon also rules over the environment because, again, the body, like, is yes, it's our physical flesh body, but our body actually extends even further beyond like at least a few meters or something. I'm European, we use meters, okay? So our body is big and huge, and sometimes we feel that even energetically, okay? If something comes too close to us, we feel that, right? Which also makes so much sense that the moon can tell us so much about our childhood because what is the environment we have grown up in, right? It's the thing that shapes us and makes us into who we are. This is why we look to the moon for this information. And again, Cancer very intuitive, very feely, sometimes too much in the feels because again we have the moon we're in the temple of the moon and Jupiter. And this is great. Sometimes this can also mean we are taking feelings as facts when they are not. Feelings are simply feelings. And I don't want to negate the importance of feelings. Feelings are very important. The body does not lie. But sometimes we can take this as truth. And it's like, no, it might be a trauma response. It might be something else. It might be the body keeping the score of an experience that we experienced in our environment, maybe from our childhood or whatever. So, this is sometimes that can be a bit tricky here, right? Because, Jupiter rules a lot over our beliefs, and sometimes we can then take our emotions as facts when they are not. Cancer lacks the rationale of Mars, but especially of Saturn here, okay? Because both of the malefics don't do so well there. I said this is something that can be a bit tricky in the sign of Cancer, but let's move forward. Talk a bit about Jupiter, our lovely planet of, growth and expansion. If we look at Jupiter, in the cosmic sense, it's the biggest of the seven inner planets. It's a gas planet. It's very not solid, which makes sense if we think about what Jupiter does and how it shapes our structures and beliefs, our worldviews. Beliefs are something very on solid, like it's not something you can necessarily prove, you know what I mean? It's not something that is concrete like Saturn. It's an inner felt sense. This is also Jupiter in Cancer. And once again, there's a lot of truth to what we are feeling and believing. It's very hard to fully grasp that, though, and explain that. But yeah, we're going to talk about that more in a second. Nevertheless, Jupiter is like the archetype of the impulse towards growth and expansion. It's also the planet of optimism and generosity. There's an urge to broaden our experiences, to expand our experiences. The world is my oyster type of feeling. There's also a very protective quality of Jupiter. What Jupiter also does up in the sky is kind of literally protect the Earth from meteors. So not only does Jupiter literally serve as a protective force for life on Earth, in a literal way, it does that also in our lives in this type of way, which is why I think Jupiter sometimes is so hard to grasp because Jupiter protects us over things we usually don't even know. Like we don't know how many meteors we have been protected of on this Earth by Jupiter's lovely force. So sometimes that is also the Jupiter experience. We don't know that we just have been lucky. Okay, and that, this is again where the Cancer quality comes in, where we have been lucky of not experiencing something or not going through something, not meeting a person, right? We always just think of these things like, oh my gosh, it's how lucky I am to have gotten this job or this met this person. We never or rarely think about how lucky we are to have not done a certain thing because how would we know, right? Like we didn't do it, so how would we know? But this is what Jupiter does, okay? Jupiter serves as a protective force in our lives, and Jupiter in Cancer is most definitely is going to protect us from certain things, okay? There's also a urge to move closer to a spiritual or larger whole. Jupiter wants to connect. It's very like collectivist. We're one big, spiritual family. It wants to go to the ultimate truth with a T, and experience that, like the ultimate long-lasting truth. On another note, Jupiter can also be about inflation and the excess of things. Obviously, if we're just growing, we're just expanding, there needs to be a boundary at some place. This is why Saturn comes after Jupiter, okay? Or it can just give ourselves a sense of inflation, okay, of being larger than life when we're not. And again, I wrote here sense of entitlement. This can definitely be a bit of a shadow quality with Jupiter. Just take a sip of my coconut water. Hey life, fertile waters, fertile coconut waters. Um, let's move on. I do want to talk a bit about the transit timeline here. We're not going to go too much in depth about what all of that means because I feel like each transit is like a separate whole video in and of itself. But I do wanted to give you guys just a bit of a transit timeline just so we know like what we're working with. First and foremost, Jupiter is in Cancer from June 9th, 2025 till June 29th, 2026. So about a year. Jupiter stays in a sign for about a year. Um, then we are also getting the last Jupiter-Saturn square on June 15, 2025. A lot of the most important Jupiter in Cancer transits are happening right at the beginning of its ingress. Later on, there's a lot less action, okay? But that last Jupiter-Saturn square is pretty freaking monumental because we've already experienced the Jupiter-Saturn squares with Jupiter in Gemini and Saturn in Pisces. And the final one we are now getting in Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn in Aries. Why is this so crazy? Because both of them are in completely different dignities. Saturn is in a fallen position, Jupiter is in an exalted position. this creates much bigger squarey tension, especially because it is squaring a Saturn that is in the temple of Mars. So yeah, keep that in mind. Keep that date in mind. Also, though, just to mention, that Jupiter-Saturn square is going back to that initial Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that happened around late December of 2020. Okay, it takes 20 years for a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction to happen, and it's always a brand new, fresh cycle. We are now getting like we're now the first quarter inside of it. This is the square, right? Like this was the conjunction, this is the square. The opposition is this, and then this is the closing square. I'm tutting now, tooting, or however you say that. So this is, okay, the beginning of this was like end of 2020 when the Jupiter Saturn conjunction happened in 0 degrees of Aquarius. Okay, next thing, obviously Jupiter Neptune square happening on June 19, 2025. Super monumental, especially because Neptune moved into Aries. Then also what I think is interesting, we always have to also kind of look at the lunations here because Jupiter is in the realm of the moon, so it kind of depends on what the moon is doing here. But I do think that is like we're getting a Jupiter Sun Cazimi, which is a rebirthing moment, just one day after we have a new moon in the sign of Cancer. This is around June 24th and 25th, 2025. Okay, this is like a big, big, big rebirthing moment for the Cancer area and house in our charts. Then we also get a Jupiter-Venus conjunction. Venus doesn't have dignity in the sign of Cancer, but I just always love, love, love Venus in Cancer. There's something that just feels so fitting to me for Venus being there. We are getting one on August 12th, 2025, and another one on June 9th, 2026. Feels very lovely for sure. Then we also get Jupiter trine North Node with the lunar eclipse happening in Pisces just a few days later. Why is this important? Because Jupiter rules over Pisces, or Pisces is the ruler of Jupiter, one of the rulers, right? Sagittarius is the other one. But yeah, this is happening around September 3rd and 7th, 2025. So I would totally watch out for that. Like the fact that Jupiter is like so much influencing that eclipse with a trine to it, like that's monumental. Then I also wrote here like we just have to keep that like there's too many transits to talk about, and I don't want to make this video about transits, okay? Like I'm sure most of y'all didn't come here for that specifically, but I do just want to mention like the Libra and Aries season, or like just transits through Libra and Aries will square Jupiter in Cancer, while the Scorpio and Pisces season will form trines to Jupiter in Cancer. Obviously, Capricorn season and all the planets moving into Capricorn will oppose Jupiter in Cancer, which is also going to be important. We also have Jupiter stationing not direct, sorry, retrograde from November 11th, 2025 till March 11th, 2026. And in around November, we are actually also getting an almost Saturn trine. Okay, we are entering into the trine era. After a square comes a trine, which we will like. It's actually almost so like they are like at the same degree, but they're not touching completely. They're like smooching almost, but not the full kiss. The full kiss, the full conjunction, is gonna happen when Jupiter is in Leo and Saturn is in Aries. Saturn is already in Aries, but so and Jupiter is in Leo. But definitely important thing to mention here. And then one other thing that I thought was quite important and just wanted to mention is obviously the Jupiter-Mars opposition on January 10th, 2026. This is because Jupiter is in its exaltation temple and Mars is also in its exaltation temple in a sign of Capricorn. So both planets exalted opposing each other. That will for sure be an interesting transit to look out for. These are really all the transits that I thought were interesting to watch out for. So Let's talk about personal and collective themes. This is more like of a general theme, and maybe even really more collective. I do just always like to mention that because I feel like it serves as a precursor into what we're going to talk about when we look at the horoscopes. Um, yeah, yeah. Okay, so abundant emotions. Um, that is definitely such a Jupiter and Cancer theme. Okay, it's like big emotions, which yeah, it depends on what it is, right? Can also be uncomfortable big emotions. But there's something to be said about the capacity to hold pain ultimately actually is the capacity to hold pleasure, and we need one to experience more of the other. And that's again why I think that everything that we've went through with Mars being in Cancer, which was like the pain part, now comes Jupiter in Cancer, that's the pleasure part. There's definitely a pursuit of happiness in the air, and I am totally thinking of the song of Kid Cudi, like, I'm in the pursuit of happiness. You'll know how that song goes, probably. Like that for me is like such a Jupiter in Cancer song. Again, reiterating the communal values, creating a global home. It feels like a big spiritual global community type of transit. Like everyone is a citizen, everyone deserves to be here, everyone has equal rights. I mean, it's actually more so insane that these are not values shared by everyone. But I do think this is something that will probably be more prevalent. People really wanting to create spaces where humanity feels safe. Okay. It's like a we're all in this together type of feeling that connects us much more because water is such a connecting element. It's where we all come from. Every one of us, every one of us that is alive here today came from a womb, came from fertile waters. Otherwise, we would not be here. So, important thing to remember, we all came from a mother. Um, Tolerance and acceptance. There's definitely like a big, because Jupiter is a generous planet, okay? And it demands tolerance and acceptance because if we want to live in a community, we need to tolerate and accept each other, no matter who we are. Everybody has their differences, different opinions. It's obviously easier said than done, and it's sometimes I feel like it's almost wishful thinking to believe that this is even possible. But if there's a time that this is more possible, it's definitely during the Jupiter in Cancer 1 year transit. Responsibility for generational nurturance. Cancer is very what is the word? It just cares about like where we came from. It's not just the womb, but it's like the lineage and the ancestry. That's why it's also global. Um, but there is a deep care for, or just like feeling of responsibility of like what comes out, like what came before me and what is coming after me. And if I do choose to, have kids in some whatever sort of way, or raise the next generation, help raise the next generation, what type of foundation can I create that is fertile for them to go? And maybe that's a question for humanity too, because I know a lot of us are really questioning where things are heading, and I get it. I'm questioning it a lot of times too, but this might be a time where, as a collective, we are really investing more into, yeah, maybe creating a better future. I don't know. Sometimes hard to believe, but this is the time. That's why I also wrote generous humanitarian acts and ethics. Definitely a very humanitarian sign. I think with Neptune and Aries, it is definitely very, very fitting too. It's about like immediate action, what we can take, and like actually taking it, like actually doing it, being proactive about it, not just thinking and dreaming about it, like actually creating it. Jupiter, is so much about the ethic and moral compass within us. So we will definitely grapple with this about ethical, moral inner compass and what our values are towards humanity. I also wrote reproductive rights. Cancer, Jupiter in Cancer. I'm sure there's going to be an influx in fighting for our reproductive rights, especially with Jupiter early forming that square to Saturn and Neptune and Aries. Um, yeah, we shall see what comes there. I do think that there might be some good things in the air when it comes to like reproductive rights and women getting more equal rights. Then we obviously also have to talk about some of the not so cool things because every planet has a shadow side too. Jupiter in Cancer can definitely also talk about overconsumption. Okay, that's just a fact. It's the planet of expansion and growth, and we can consume way too much. Sometimes also Jupiter traveling through the first house can indicate weight gain because we are overindulging. Okay, this is also what I wrote here. Overindulgence and gluttony. Yeah, when you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna like I've been starving literally or metaphorically for so long, and now I'm just gonna overindulge in whatever way. Just take in, take in, take in. Be careful of that. I also wrote growing pains. I think that is such a good word for Jupiter in Cancer. Because expansion is not just nice, it can be overwhelming. If you've listened to the 11th house episode, um, the 11th house is the joy of Jupiter. We talked there, me and Hawk, we talked there about Kurt Cobain's chart. Kurt Cobain had Jupiter in Cancer and the Moon in Cancer in the 11th house, conjoining each other practically. Also Saturn in Pisces. But, you know, we all know what happened to this guy. Things didn't go too well. He had like such a positive chart, which is can sometimes be the downfall. Okay, and this is what I always tell people. You don't want to have just a good chart with just good aspects because he got famous so fast, way too fast. Um, you know, and this is like very much the growth of Jupiter. Expansion can hurt. If it happens too fast, it can be overwhelming, and we're like, what do I do now? I didn't want to be this famous, but now I am. What do you do now? So this is definitely also a theme that can happen. And I'm also thinking how crabs are also creature that molts. It means it outgrows its skin. It has to shed its skin. This is a painful process. Molting is a painful process. And what happens after that? The crab is like almost I mean, it's practically like naked, right? It needs time to regrow its shell. So, growing outside of our shell is painful. Expansion, growth is painful. And after that, we feel like a newborn baby that needs to learn things anew. So, something to keep in mind. And again, this is a bit of a debatable one, this one right here, because it's not like necessarily a bad thing. Um, Feelings and senses as truth. First of all, especially for us women out here, we are constantly, denied our feelings in some sort of way or gaslit about what we are feeling, our intuition and all of that. So I don't want to downplay the importance of listening to our feelings, our gut feelings. Interesting. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Cancer does also kind of partially at least roll over the gut or the stomach area. Makes sense, the gut is a second brain. So I don't want to downplay that. At the same time, I'm talking about different scenarios now. Sometimes when we are too much in our feelings, we can just take them as truth when it's like not the only truth. Have you ever been in a completely depressed state and like, is it actually true? Like, is the things that you're thinking at that time actually true about yourself? No, no, they're not. Most of the times they are not. It's just what you are feeling, but you feel it so intensely that it feels like this is the actual reality when it's not. It's not the actual reality. This is what talking about here. Like this can be a freaking problem that we are taking our feelings and senses as truth. And especially if we are in a deep depressed state, or even when we are in an expansive and great state and we feel like on top of the world, that is also not the truth. Okay. This is why the moon is the home sign of Cancer. Sorry, you know what I'm trying to say. um, the moon goes up and down, ebbs and flows. Okay, and we need to be comfortable with the highs and the lows. And none of these states are the ultimate truth. They're just feelings that come and go, ebb and flow, just like the waters. Um, Something that can also happen here is playing emotions for sympathy and fake charity, okay? Um, I'm thinking about all the videos that I sometimes stumble upon, on Instagram that are fake good. These videos that somebody puts animals in a dangerous position just to wrap up the camera and save them when it's them that put them in that position. The internet is a freaking scary place nowadays with so many videos being fake. I can totally see how Jupiter in Cancer could also be about fake charity, because it's basically you putting yourself in a position where people are like, oh, what a good person, what a grand and good person. I mean, it's not a secret. There are definitely celebrities and people that have done that to protect their image by doing such videos. Um, or again, doing fake charity where it's like, I'm gonna do that so people think I'm a good person. Yeah, we are getting into dangerous realm here, and it's definitely something that can also be expanded under the guise of Jupiter in Cancer. Conflicting beliefs and values. Um, Again, this is more on the side of because Cancer is so much is very communal, right? So there can be conflicting beliefs and values here because it's Jupiter. Jupiter is all about that tribe mentality, as already mentioned before. Can be good, can also be bad, can be again crab bucket thing where it's like nobody of us can make it to top. No, 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 no. And again, can also be overprotective. Sometimes Cancer can, instead of just putting a boundary, can actually just put up walls and retrieve into its shell and isolate itself. And that is not a good thing. And especially with the growth and expansion part of Jupiter, this can sometimes happen, right? We grow too fast, we're overwhelmed, we retrieve back and we overprotect ourselves. We kind of need to, right? Like if we have undergone the molting and shedding process and now we are a newborn crab without a shell, we do kind of need to be a bit overprotective. Even with our ideas, right? We need to be a bit overprotective in the beginning for sure. So I'm not like trying to say that's a bad thing. We just need to catch ourselves when we have isolated ourselves too long or sunken too deep in the depths of the ocean, locked ourselves up in the room for too long where we are avoiding that. Can also be, sometimes when Jupiter in Cancer comes along and it's like pulling our hand, like we come on, we need to expand, we need to grow, and we're running away from that. Yeah, like let's not do that, okay? Escaping your fate of growing and expansion is just as bad as escaping your fate of some of the bad things that are bound to happen. We need to go through what we need to go through. And running away from growth and expansion can be equally as harmful. Okay. Um, this is what I have to say here. We are now going to talk about the horoscopes. We're going to start with Aries, but let me just first take a sip of water because, gosh, we're just starting with Aries and I've already talked so much and yeah, it's not easy on the throat. I'm getting some water sipping ASMR right here. I like to really not edit my videos too much. Um, but yeah, so I hope this is not too annoying. I don't know how long I've been going for. Maybe an hour now. A little bit less. Okay, let's get into horoscopes. Aries suns and okay, no, no, no. Let me actually scoot back. To tell you that, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, you should watch for your rising sign. Why? Because it lines up the houses with the topics. If we, if you are, you know, an Aries rising, but your sun is in Cancer, you're essentially saying like, if I'm gonna watch for my sun in Cancer, like, well, then Jupiter is traveling through my first house. When no, Cancer is your fourth house. You know what I'm saying? So I do recommend watching for your rising sign because it's gonna make the house topics align much better. But I know that not everybody has the privilege of even knowing their birth time, and sun horoscopes work for a lot of people. So definitely also watch for your sun sign if you want that. But I would watch for both. Okay, now Aries suns and Aries risings. Jupiter will be traveling through your fourth house. This is, the base of your chart. Really, if we want to put it in the most simple of terms, um, it's where you live. But it's not just like it's not just your house. It is your house, but it's also the land you were born in. It's about your family, it's about your ancestry. And with Jupiter traveling through your fourth house, I definitely think there's gonna be like an urge inside of you to connect to some sort of community in a deeper way. I know you are a sign that likes to do a lot of things on your own, but Cancer ruling your fourth house is like you need a protective shell that you can call home. Okay. And I feel like Jupiter in traveling through Cancer is going to make you very aware of that if you haven't already been. I think the first step with all of this is also just like reconnecting to your family and ancestry. If you haven't done that already, maybe you have not fully explored where you come from, and this is such a good time to do that, to grow and expand your knowledge and on where you come from, which culture you come from, especially if you are living in a country right now that is not your birthplace or your origin place. It's such a good time to reconnect with that. And also like the beliefs of your ancestors. What traditions have they been part of? What religions have they been part of? Because that can deeply like connect you to that lineage of yours and maybe potentially even heal some pains and aches from that lineage, okay? Um, like I know it's like not your burden to carry or anything like that, but like someone's gonna do it. And with Saturn traveling through your first house, like you can be the person that's gonna do it. Um, you're gonna ultimately liberate yourselves and also liberate other people in your lineage, okay? So highly recommend doing that, and connecting to all of that. And then there's also, I wrote here, like positive values and culture in one's home, which can be influenced by reconnecting with that. But of course, ultimately, you live your life. You decide what fits your life, and what you want to do now because you co-create your life right now. But I feel like it's gonna lead you to explore what values do I want to have in my home life? What is important in my home life and in my house? Which uh, oh, I don't know the word right now either. But like which things do I want people to do? Like, is it important for me that people take off their shoes when they enter my house? Things like that. Since Cancer is also very protective, how do I want to protect my home? Okay, I know there are people that are very open to like who can enter their home. I'm a Scorpio. I don't understand that, but there are people that are just like, yeah, come to my place. It's like, who are you letting into your place? Okay, maybe it's time to establish some sort of like protective forces around your place. Like maybe you don't just want to invite anyone to your place because your home is an extension of yourself, and like not everybody should get access to yourself that easily. At least that's what I think. So I feel like that's maybe something that you can explore more deeply while Jupiter is there. There's many things, there's sigils that you can write there. There's things you can set up at your front door. Um, blowing, putting up salt around your windows. There's so many things, that you can do just to protect your space a little bit more. I think it's just going to be so important. Like, obviously, ultimately, you also want to expand your space, right? But expand it with the right people, okay? Invite the right people into your home because then it will be much more expansive and beautiful unless instead of just inviting everybody in. Um, it's also probably going to make you think of cooperative living inside the same household if you are not living alone, for example, or maybe thinking of moving into even a community or something. I can certainly see that there could be a sense of moving into a community or moving in with people and not wanting to do everything alone. So the question then will be like, how can we be cooperative when we are living together and sharing the same household? Definitely a bit out of your comfort zone, but I do feel like there's a lot of growth potential for you there, dear Aries. Because yeah, there's just I know you're a sign that likes to do things alone, but there's just so much potential in learning to grow with other people. And so I feel like that could be an interesting thing of getting outside of your comfort zone. Like, let me go and live together with other people. It can also just be for a while. Jupiter is in Cancer for a year. Maybe you just decide I'm gonna move somewhere else for a year. By the way, pro tip, move somewhere that is near the ocean, okay? Because Cancer rules the ocean, okay? So maybe you want to move somewhere where is near the ocean, maybe like a permaculture community or group, and just see what happens if I um am in a community and do maybe some beneficial work, generous for others, helping others. Can definitely also, like, the fourth house is usually our own home. Can also be that you are in a benefactoring role of helping other people establish their homes. Things like that can also be that, like, you're very lucky if you're moving or something, you get extremely lucky in the neighborhood, even though neighborhood is like more third house, but just like the house or the living situation that you get in. Maybe you find this amazing deal of this new place you want to move to, that is very Jupiter in the fourth house. Ultimately, I think this transit is really here for you to establish a base of safety within. Safety is so important for Cancer, and I feel like the home. Yes, it is where we live, but the first home we have, and we always have, no matter where we go, we can't escape it, is our body and our mind. And we want to make sure that this is where we like to live, that our body and our head is a place that we like to live. And so for me, the fourth house is so much talking also about the mind and the body, and how we can establish a safe base within ourselves. Because once we have that, it's so much easier to also establish that in the outside world. And often things also just come to us, right? Because the inner is a reflection of the outer. So once we establish a greater sense of safety within, I guarantee you the opportunities that are coming into your life are going to be so much easier to also handle. Because again, expansion is an internal feeling that we need to learn to hold. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to be extremely overwhelming. This is also actually, not a lot of people talk about this, one of the reasons why meditation can be so beneficial and important. It's to train your mind to be more at peace, but also your body and your nervous system to have the capacity to hold more of the spiritual expansion. So when it comes, when like a sort of awakening moment comes, you can actually like hold it. It doesn't overwhelm you. So I think this is all I have to say for now, dear Aries. I hope you're having a good time, and I certainly wish you a lovely Jupiter in Cancer transit. Okay, great. Let's move to Taurus, Sun, and Rising. Hello, hello. Welcome to your horoscope. And for you, dear Tauruses, Jupiter will be traveling through our third house. The third house is very much our fish tank environment. It's everything that is around us. It's not necessarily our house, it's everything that is around the house. So it's expanding a sense of a community outside of your house. okay, which local places, spaces do you want to connect with? Which local groups do you want to connect with? Maybe you want to join, I don't know, like a permaculture group or like a gardening group nearby you. Can also be something more watery, like a caring about pet fishes in your local pet store or something like that. Volunteer work. I don't know, things like that. Jupiter in Cancer is certainly very beneficial, can give you that sort of benefactor quality of really wanting to do good in your local space. Jupiter also has a lot to do with religion. So, depending on if you're part of a sort of religious group, might be a super great time for you to engage with that, like your local church or your local spiritual group, whatever, right? Whatever is works for you. That is a good time to expand that, and really step into more of like charity work and maybe even organizing events, for your locals and everything. I'm thinking how I recently, like a few months ago, I joined this local organization here that organizes a lot of the festivities in my town where I live in. And so, like, I feel like this transit could talk about something like that. It's like, hey, I really want to engage and make my local community better and be of service to them. Um, so what else do we have here? Yeah, daily nurturing rituals. Okay, the third house is all about our daily rituals and things that nurture our soul. Um, the third house is no, let me put it this way. The third house is the place of the goddess. Okay, and it's where the moon has its joy. In ancient times, this is why like it was connected to shrines and all of that, because most of us in ancient times, if we would have been alive then, would have had some sort of shrine or something nearby our way in our local community or village where we were living in, where we would stop by and give our prayers to the goddess or the goddesses or whatever entities. And this is how we would stay connected to the locals, how we would stay connected to the family, how we would pay tribute to the community that we are a part of, right? All these like goddesses and gods were so important to like, they served as a protective force. I do feel like the third house, talking about our nearby environment, could also make you very aware of the fact that you need the water element much closer by to you. I mean, Taurus risings, I know, or just Tauruses in general, you need something where you can like completely shut off your mind and get back to your senses. The third house can sometimes talk about that and where we can find that. It's a good time to, an ideal time to be nearby bodies of water, or even just go bathing more. Okay. Just connecting to that water element more, maybe doing some water rituals, something like that. I feel like that could be just so, so, so beneficial. Because it's also connected to, okay, you're a Venus ruled sign. Venus rules your ascendant and also your sixth house. It can be extremely beneficial to your work and what you do, and and just like the people that connect you with, because the other house that Jupiter also rules is like your 11th and your 8th house. These are the Jupiter ruled houses in your chart. So you could find interesting people once you connect more to that water element. And learn to go a bit more with the flow. Okay, you're a fixed sign, so you sometimes need to learn to go with a bit more with the flow. There is also the third house talks about our siblings as well. So sometimes what can happen when Jupiter is there is that a sibling gets like awaits a baby. The family expands, the nearby family expands. Your sibling is suddenly pregnant and they're awaiting a baby. And so your family grows, right? So that's something that can also happen. Sorry. Um, yeah, since it's also talking about the neighbors, it could also be that you're very lucky in the neighbors you have, or like new neighbors move in or whatever, and they become extremely beneficial benefactors to you in some sort of way. Um, yeah, this is what I have for you, dear Tauruses. Let me know down in the comments what you're thinking, and yeah, enjoy the Jupiter in Cancer times. Bye. Let me just take another sip of water. Gosh, my throat is already itching and we're just at Gemini. Okay. Whew. Let me just briefly stretch here before continuing. We're keeping this so real and so raw. Um, it's hard sitting in that chair for like 2 hours, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I'm gonna deliver you some good things. And gosh, I wish I had like a hair tie here or something, but I really don't. Because it's getting a bit hot. Okay, Gemini suns and Gemini risings. Excuse me, Jupiter in Cancer is traveling through your second house. Um, the second house is all about, it's not just about money. It's also what we like accumulate over our life, which in a lot of ways is money, but it can also be hobbies and things. I feel like with you having Cancer rule your second house, it can also be a lot of like developing your emotional well-being and how you deal with that. Because as a Gemini, as a Mercury ruled rising, you usually have a harder time being in your body. So this will definitely be a good time to learn to be more present in your body and your emotions and get a real maturity boost in like how you deal with that and how beneficial actually being in your emotions and feeling them can be. Um, since there is definitely also like money is still in the second house, I feel like there's gonna be a lots of things that you will grapple with on how your emotional attachment to money works. Like, what is your emotional relationship towards money and what you have, what you accumulate? Like, really take that under a microscope and look at how your beliefs and feelings towards money are shaping your reality. I feel like I'm talking here as if I'm like some sort of money coach or something like that. I'm not trying to sell you any course, okay? But I do just think this is going to be something that is very, very, very prevalent for you because the way we think about money and the way we feel about money and gaining things, like allowing ourselves to actually gain things, can be life changing, life changing. And Jupiter comes in with that expansion and is like, are you ready to receive? Are you ready to receive? And if you are not, things can be very, very overwhelming. Um, that's why also, right, providing abundance, being a benefactor. You could also talk about you being a benefactor to others. Maybe you've accumulated money or you've accumulated certain things, and now you're like, I want to share this with people. I want to be generous to others. I want to give back to others. This can also talk about the second house because it's things that we have accumulated, which oftentimes, and this is why all of this is in a trine towards like the 10th, the 6th, and the second house form a trine because it talks so much about like our work and everything. And Jupiter does also rule your 10th house, your Geminis. So there's something that can be very connected here to your career growth and what you do in the world, depending on how generous you are. It does not just have to be generous with money, okay? It can be generous with again with your emotions, like just listening, like sitting and listening to your friend, being there for them. That is also being a benefactor, letting somebody sit and feel their emotions. Um, all of that, providing safety and comfort to them, giving nurturance, being a supporter. So yeah, but there's definitely a big question around material well-being and how you are dealing with that. What does that mean for you? Like how much material well-being do you even want to have or accumulate? Um, Jupiter in the second house is, let me actually put it this way. Jupiter, the luck of Jupiter is preparation meets opportunity. Not everybody of us is just gonna magically get money when Jupiter moves through the second house. Okay, I certainly didn't get, I don't know, money when Jupiter in Sagittarius was going through my second house. It was actually more of a tough financial year for me. So, okay. I don't want to like pop any dreams here or anything, but it's just like I simply don't want to overpromise and be like, "Oh, Jupiter is gonna go through your second house and you're gonna get rich." Like, no, it's probably going to make you see more opportunities on how you can gain more material wealth, but you're going to have to take them. You're going to have to take them if they are presented to you. This is why luck is meeting the right opportunity at the right time. And it's probably coming from a long set of being prepared to do that. Otherwise, things aren't just naturally going to come. Like, you're not just like if you're sitting at home, like no one's just gonna knock at your door and hand you $1 million or something like that. Like that's not gonna happen. And if anything, it can also be overwhelming, okay? Uh, Expansion is something that is felt inside the body. So we need to get comfortable experiencing it in the body first and feeling that expansion is safe. That expansion is safe. So, dear Geminis, you need to work on that first. Otherwise, it will be extremely hard for you to receive. The second house is definitely also about receiving. It's about giving, but it's also about receiving. Both of the eighth and the second houses are about that. Yeah, accumulation. Again, there's so many things we can accumulate. Sometimes we can also accumulate too much things. Jupiter can also make us accumulate way too much things, and then you're like, well, what do I do with this? Okay, Jupiter and Cancer can also be overindulging. So, and it's also that's like a very interesting thing to observe, because I know a few people in my life that have way more money than I do. They are living like more broke than I am, simply because of their mindset and because they feel like they constantly need to overconsume. Isn't that so interesting? So, how much you have depends on how you are feeling about things. You can live in abundance, and it's also probably something you're going to learn. Like, what does abundance actually mean to you? It's probably in the feelings, in the way that you're feeling, in how you safe you are feeling. Doing big grand purchases, suddenly getting the car of a dream that cost you way more than you ever thought or imagined that you could even spend is going to be a nervous system crash. And you're going to need to learn to feel safe in that so that you can experience and receive more abundance into your life. But I feel like that's all I have to say because I feel like I could give you like a whole workshop talk just on this topic. But yeah, this is what I have for you, Gemini folks. I wish you a lovely Jupiter in a Cancer transit. And yeah, hope to see you soon. Bye. Quick toilet break, but now I'm back and we're back with Cancer Suns and Cancer Risings. Hi, welcome to your Jupiter in Cancer horoscope. And dear Cancers, probably the most exciting news for y'all because Jupiter is traveling through your first house. This is definitely like a super nice like transit to go through your first house. I think especially for you because your natal ruler, the moon, is such a quick and fast moving planet that it feels so nice to have finally a planet that is in its exaltation going and staying there for a whole year, okay? Because all the other rising signs tend to get their ruling planet there for much longer than you do, right? The moon is joins your ascendant every month, but it goes by so quickly. So I really love that y'all are getting Jupiter in your first house for around a year. And obviously, Jupiter in the first house just can get like feel like an overall sense of luck and abundance. And just like, wow, I'm expanding. I'm a person. And like, it's like the lucky girl syndrome, no matter if you're a girl or a boy or whatever. That's just how it can feel like Jupiter traveling through the first house. Jupiter in the first can also be a very bright and big aura. 1,000 aura points here. just because it can make you seem and feel very expansive to other people all of a sudden, and to yourself as well. Obviously, there's also there's a chance of feeling grander than you actually are. Not really necessarily getting into the Lulu mode, but just there can be a feeling of like grandiosity and being better than you actually are. Nevertheless, sometimes I do feel like that's a good thing, because it leads us to experience things you otherwise wouldn't have experienced. Okay, and sometimes we need to simply feel like that because it starts there. It starts with even be able to imagine these things. And Jupiter actually talks a lot about the structures we hold with how we view the world. It's like about our beliefs and everything, because the way that we believe certain things informs our entire experience. If me and you are going on a park and on a breezy day, maybe for you, you hate the breeze. You hate that, and you don't like dogs in parks. You're gonna have a shitty experience. Maybe I love the breeze and dogs are my favorite animal or whatever. I'm gonna love that experience. And that was maybe formed because when you were a child, there you had a bad experience with dogs or something like that. So all of that is informed, like the way we view and believe things, all of that informs our living experience. But we can change, shapeshift, and adapt all of that. So this is what you are going to be going through. You'll literally be going through a lucky girl phase and seeing how the way, like, it's like the typical, the when you change the way you look at things, the things you change, the things you look at change type of transit. And you're probably gonna go places you wouldn't even have imagined you would that you could go. All of that, like just rich experiences and new beginnings. The first house is also so much about new beginnings. I feel like for you especially, that new moon in also like just like, okay, Jupiter and the sun are gonna form a cazimi, and like just one day later we're gonna have the new moon in Cancer. And I feel like this is gonna be such a brand new fresh start for you, dear Cancers. Like, you don't even know, especially because y'all have been dealing with such a rough Mars retrograde transit through your first house. I know so many Cancer risings that have dealt with so many impedious and horrendous things. And so I love that for you, okay? I feel like it's such a much needed fresh new stars with new fertile waters. Like birthing, okay? Jupiter in Cancer is about being pregnant, but it can also be being pregnant like in a metaphorical way, like you impregnating yourself with a new idea and new vision. Jupiter also rules, Pisces, your ninth house, and also your sixth house. Um, so there's probably lots of like ideas here, like um, how does this benefit the way where I want to go in life? Where the heck I want to go in life? Because I create my life, right? So this is going to be something that is very, very prevalent here. Um, and then, you could probably also see like some health improvements, because the first house also talks about our body, which then can also talk about health. There is a but here, which is that sometimes Jupiter traveling through the first house, because it is about expansion, can also talk about our body expanding, which talks about, gaining weight, which often stems from overindulging and overeating. So this is my cautionary advice here for you Cancers. If you are somebody that has a sweet tooth and you like to eat, just be careful, because at that time, during that 1 year transit, you might run the risk of yeah, like just gaining more weight or gaining too much weight, more weight than you want to, essentially. And we don't want that, right? Um, Jupiter is doesn't have so much boundaries. That's where Saturn comes in. So if you don't say no, like things will just keep coming in, and like you have to say no to certain foods, okay? Because you know, Otherwise, it can also lead to diseases like diabetes and all of that. And we don't want that. At least I do not want that for you. But I do just want to say that as a cautionary warning. But it could also just be like you like expanding how you show up for yourself and improving your health. Expanding your health. Expanding your body can also mean like gaining muscles. Okay. That is also expanding your body. So it could also talk about that. Then it can definitely also talk about embodying more nourishing feminine qualities. This does not like, with feminine qualities, I just mean the more qualities that embody like introspection, being more intuitive. It does not matter if you are a woman or a man. Okay, this applies to both. It could just be like you getting in touch with your more feminine side and these more feminine qualities inside of yourself and see that, I have to take care of myself first. I have to take care of myself first. This is so important. You need to fill your own cup first before you go out and start filling other people's cups. Because once you do that, once you fill your cup first, oof, you can come from such a more abundant place to help other people without it leading to some sort of resentment or lack of reciprocity because you know that you can give these things to yourself. Okay, the first and foremost, important relationship is the one we have to ourself, the one we have to divinity, the one we have to God. Jupiter traveling to your first house is about that. We first need to establish a rich inner experience because then this will reflect the external world, and the external world will also become a much more enriching experience in and of itself. So, this is what I have for you, dear Cancers. I wish you a most absolutely lovely Jupiter in Cancer transit through your first house. Um, and I'll see you guys soon. Have a lovely time. Great, Leo suns and Leo risings. Welcome to your Jupiter in Cancer horoscope. Now, Jupiter in Cancer is traveling to your 12th house. Now, this is a more tricky house. I'm not going to deny that. I literally just did a podcast episode on the 12th house. And it's not the most fun place. Regardless, you have a benefic planet in its exaltation traveling through that 12th house, which can actually mean a lot of positive things for these rather negative themes that are surrounded in the 12th house. Because the 12th house is the house of undoing. And one thing I always like to say to people is that that part about the 12th house is that it confronts us with our self-harming, limiting, isolating behaviors. But the good part about the 12th house is that it confronts us and let us see our self-harming, limiting, isolating behaviors and get an opportunity to really change something now. I'm sure the Mars in retrograde period through your 12th house, and also partially a bit through your first house, has been very tough. I'm sure it has brought up a lot of uncomfortable things and especially like internal emotional conflicts. Jupiter in Cancer feels like a protective grace right now to confront these things in a more safe way. Jupiter serves as a protective factor, which is why I think it traveling through your 12th house will actually serve as some sort of balm. And you might not even know what exactly you're being protected for. I don't know if you listened to the intro, but I'm just going to repeat it here for you, dear Leos. You're special right now. You're always special. Uh, but just Jupiter in the sky, what Jupiter does as a planet is it shields the Earth from meteors and asteroids. Um, Also, yeah, I feel like I said meteors in the beginning. It's asteroids that I mean. Goddamn. Um, but we don't know that. Like, we don't physically know how many asteroids Jupiter has like protected us from. Um, so this is what a benefic, especially an exalted benefic, traveling through one of the harsher places can feel like. You probably will not know what you are being protected from in the 12th house, but you will be protected from something. From like the metaphorical meteors or asteroids that are trying to come into your life. So there's a big emphasis on mental and spiritual protection, and also what you can do yourself to protect yourself from these 12th house is just like a tricky place because sometimes these attacks can feel like they're coming out of nowhere. Okay, the 12th house also talks about hidden enemies. Sometimes the biggest hidden enemy is our own shadow, is our own shadow part. Um, and so it's like, how can we integrate these parts in a safe way? That's why I also wrote safe healing environments. Like, you need to have safe environments to be able to even heal. If we do not feel safe mentally or in our body, there's no chance of healing occurring because we're just going to reiterate a survival story that we are going through in our bodies. Um, it's going to be so, so, so important for you, dear Leos, to feel safe enough to go inside your body. Highly, highly recommend, if you're struggling with these things, to work with a body-based therapist. You're going to be astounded and amazed by how far you will be able to go by learning to feel your emotions through your body and let them go. Like, there's things that you haven't processed in 10 years, all of a sudden it's just gone because you've let yourself feel it through your body. So I highly recommend yourself. Like, you need to establish some sort of safe environment to be able to go through these things, to go through these harsher topics. And I think Jupiter might as well just, this is probably where the luck comes from Jupiter. Okay, the 12th house is a tough space. So it's not like the topics are not going to exist that are going to come up, but it's going to give you the right like space and place and people that can help you constitute that healing. Um, this is why I also wrote healing time off, protective retrieval. It's like going to retreat or something, going to a silence retreat, going through like a spiritual yoga retreat, just somewhere where you can have full time off and establish that inner sense of safety within yourself. Um, yeah, and also just learning how to grapple with these aspects within yourself that are usually harsh. There's a book by uh, Schwartz. I don't know the first name right now, but I know his name is Schwartz. Um, he wrote a book called No Bad Parts, I believe. Um, he is very much of the opinion that all the parts we have within ourselves are good or exist for a reason. Let's put it that way. And it's up to us to form and establish healthy relationships with them and hear them to then integrate them. Okay, it's yeah, he because he's the founder of like internal family systems, IFS, right? And I feel like that's, even internal family systems, doesn't that just sound so much like a Cancerian 12th house theme? Um, so this is also something that I can highly recommend you work with. Um, because like we need to have a safe inner home, okay? Our own body and mind are our first and foremost home. We cannot escape that. Even if we move 10,000 of miles away, we cannot escape our mind, we cannot escape our body. So we need to learn to make our body and our mind a home that we like to be in, no matter where we are. And this is Jupiter traveling through our 12th house. Um, Again, this is why I said establishing a deeper connection to our shadow side. Yeah, it's there for a reason, okay? And I trust you, things will be so much better once you work through them. Because you know what's happening next? You know what's happening next year? Jupiter's going into Leo in your first house, and that's going to be a whole different story. But now we need to work on that 12th house first, for then Jupiter in the 12th house, for Jupiter then in your first house being a lovely, sexy time. So, this is what I have to say, dear Leos. Let me know down in the comments what you're feeling, what you're going through. I'm sending you so much love and hope to see you soon. Okay, okay. Virgo suns and Virgo risings. Hi, welcome to your Jupiter in Cancer horoscope. Jupiter in Cancer is going to be traveling through your 11th house. And this is pretty sexy because the 11th house is the joy of Jupiter. So Jupiter does extremely well in the 11th house. Why? because the 11th house is about our dreams, it's about our visions, it's about our communities, it's about the people that we meet that propel us forward, about benefactors. So this is going to be a really, really interesting time for you, dear Virgos, especially for y'all also having that south north node eclipses and axes going through your first and seventh house right now. Like there's so much happening, and especially with like other people, like other people bringing in good things into your life. Let me just say that. And I love that, especially because like Saturn and Neptune in your eighth house, more tricky placements for sure. Jupiter in the 11th house has a big potential to balance things out in a good way. And even if there might be some difficult entanglements going on in your life with other people's money and their resources, you have to have a community that you can lean into. Community care is going to be such an important thing for you, dear Virgos, during that time. You need a community that you can feel safe, that you can fall back on, that has your back, has your back. If you don't already have that, it's going to be a time for you to search for that one. But the cool thing about Jupiter is, especially traveling through its house of joy, is that it can sometimes bring that into our lives. Like we don't even have to do so much. Like it just kind of like comes into our lives. Um, so there's going to be a big emphasis on nurturing friendships. You really need that safe emotional place for your, where you can just feel like I can be myself here. I can be myself here. I'm good as I am. I can express myself emotionally the way that I want to. This is the types of people that you want to have around yourself. If these are not the type of friends you have around yourself, time to reevaluate. Time to freaking reevaluate, dear Virgos, especially with that Saturn and Neptune in your eighth. If there are power struggles and imbalances, like things can get quite rough. The 11th house is also just the importance of, I like to think of the 11th house a lot of as vitamin B, because so often it's the people we know, the communities that we know, the right connections that we know, that propel us towards the right things. That's why I said like alliances, meeting the right people at the right time. I would not be surprised, dear Virgos, if you all of a sudden meet the right people at the right time, and it feels like a fated encounter. Because you know Jupiter is a lot about fate, and it could literally just be like this intuitive feeling of, today I just feel like I have to, or like in a few, like next month, I just feel like I have to travel to Thailand. I don't know why, but I have to do it. Listen to these gut feelings. I'm telling you, dear Virgos, because they will lead you to places and meeting the right people under right circumstances. You will be surprised. You will be surprised. I also wrote here opportunity meets preparation. That is luck. That is what the lucky side of Jupiter is. It's opportunity meeting preparation. And you need to be prepared because when things come your way, you don't want to miss it, okay? You don't just get Jupiter in its joy, in its exaltation, in its house of joy every other year. No, that happens like every 12 and a half years. So this is a big time for y'all, okay? Um, so listen to these gut feelings and where it wants to lead you, because again, you'll be surprised like where it leads you. Like you can't even imagine. And you're gonna need to have people that are aligning with your dreams and visions. Um, Probably what's gonna happen first is that your vision and dreams are gonna change. And the effect of your dreams and visions changing is gonna be you craving different sort of people and allies in your life. Because if you're not with the right people that can dream as big as you can, and this is going to be a time, okay? Sometimes Virgos, you tend to be just a bit too, not pessimistic maybe, but just too factual. This is why Jupiter is in its detriment in your sign. And Mercury does extremely well. This time, it's about letting go of the factual. And I'm just thinking of like that scene from Aladdin, where He takes Jasmine's hand and he's like, "Do you trust me?" This is the metaphorical version of Jupiter in your 11th house being like, "Do you trust me? Come and join me on this magic carpet ride, but you have to trust me, okay? And then we're gonna ride, but you have to trust me. You can't question the logic of it. You can't question the logic of these things and how it's gonna happen. You just need to trust that it is going to happen." Um, and I really love that for you. Again, I think it's gonna be so good. I feel like overall it's gonna be so good. One thing, though, that let's also talk about some of the more bad sides. Um, is that it can be overwhelming. Okay, this can be an overwhelming transit. Um, all of a sudden, maybe you just have like so many opportunities. You're like, I don't even know what to do with this anymore, and this can then leave you to retrieving into your metaphorical shell, or maybe isolating yourself because you're like, I don't even know what to do with all of this. All of these people suddenly want to hang out with me. I don't even have the time and the capacity. Um, so just be a bit of aware of that, okay? Expansion is a feeling in the body we need to get comfortable feeling and experiencing, and it doesn't just show up like that. Even the people, like I'm talking here about nurturing friendships, like it's hard to receive that, okay? Like it's hard to even receive it. It's hard to receive nurture and care from other people, especially for you, Virgos. Like you're usually the one that is caring and nurturing to other people and, cleans other people's houses just because. What if we switch that role? What if we switch that role and you're on the receiving end? I'm sure it's not going to be easy and it's going to feel a bit uncomfortable. Growth and expansion is uncomfortable too, and it can be too much. So, this is what I have to say here. I wish you all a lovely and beautiful Jupiter and Cancer transit. I'm sending you much love, and let me know down in the comments how you're feeling. I hope to see you soon. Bye. Great. Libra suns and Libra risings. So, Jupiter in Cancer is going to be traveling through your 10th house. This is an angular place. It is squaring your ascendant. So can sometimes bring a bit of attention here. There is also just because there's also like Neptune and Saturn in Aries, traveling through your seventh, dear Libras. So there is a bit of a tricky T square kind of going on here. You're also, dear Libras, you have a very, very interesting time right now. You're the only sign that gets essentially a grand trine, almost you could say, depending on where your ascendant is actually falling. But Uranus in Gemini is going to trine your ascendant. Pluto in Aquarius is going to trine your ascendant. You're also the only sign that's getting an opposition from Aries. So, extremely interesting dichotomy you're going through here. And then again, you're getting basically a T square here with Jupiter in Cancer as well. There's a big emphasis on the parts on your chart, like the 10th, the ninth, the seventh house. Um, Also a bit of the fifth house, right? But more so the other houses, that there's a big emphasis on others and other people and things that are not you as a person, but what other people are bringing into your life, which is the seventh house. The ninth house talks a lot about your beliefs and all of that. And then the 10th house is a lot about like your career and what you want to do in this world. So it is like what you want to do in this world, but it involves a lot of like selfless acts. Okay, because like the career or the vacation that we choose is almost like a separate entity outside of ourselves. There can also be a problem with over-identifying with our career and everything. So that it's gonna be interesting. Like I feel like for you this year is a lot about you not losing yourself to other people in your career. It can easily happen that you forget yourself. And hopefully, maybe Saturn and Neptune in the seventh can at least bring you a partner or like a close relationship, can also be a friendship or a therapist that can help you ground yourself and not lose yourself. Um, because again, Jupiter in the 10th house is definitely going to be an opportunity for career growth. You're probably going to get opportunities handed for you, but don't forget that luck, the keyword for Jupiter is opportunity meets preparation, or preparation meets opportunity. I think that's the that's the right way to say it. If you're not prepared, and this opportunity comes along, you can maybe feel overwhelmed. Like maybe somebody offers you to get into a new and higher up position, but you're not ready for that. And like, we don't want that. Okay. We don't want that. We want you to be ready for your career growth and expansion. But it can also be a scary process. It can be a scary process. Okay. Crabs molt. This means they are, when they have outgrown their shell, they molt. Whoops, sorry. They molt and then they are kind of like naked, right? They're naked and they need to learn everything new until they grow a new shell again. This is sometimes what a career growth step can feel like. You've outgrown your shell. Now you're in a new position. There's lots of responsibilities and things coming your way. Sometimes we can play small just because we are afraid of that responsibility that will come if we accept this. And this is what Jupiter in Cancer is going to be like for you. And this is also where the square thing comes along because it's not an easy thing to do. It can be freaking scary. Okay, big advancements can be freaking scary. Um, and also not easy on the body. Okay, expansion can be very hard on the body. Like, let's not deny that. There's also going to be like a striving for contentment because the 10th house is a lot about like the peak. Technically, the MC is about the peak. The MC is not always in the 10th house, at least not when we look at whole sign houses. Um, but there is like a peak component to the 10th house. And so there could be like a striving for just like contentment and happiness. Like, what does that mean for me? What does happiness and contentment mean for me? How much do I need to keep on expanding until I feel okay? Um, yes. Also, being seen as a benefactor, the 10th house talks a lot about our social status, how we come off to the world. Um, so Jupiter in the 10th house can most definitely lead you to being perceived as somebody very generous, somebody that has this benefactor quality, somebody that has this generous shine and appeal to them, a very like grand persona. It might not be that that is how you actually are, but that is how you could be perceived during that time. Definitely could expand your social status depending on which people you have around yourself. Um, the 10th house is about career, but it's also so much about our vocation. So what our soul is came here to do. Um, because, not everybody of us is in their mid like 20s or 30s and making career advancements. Some of us, are maybe like way older. Maybe somebody's watching this and is retired. Um, it's also so many things that we reach past our peak, uh, like work age and years or whatever, because there's so many things that you can still do after that. Maybe you publish a book, like maybe you're 80 and you're just like, I want to publish a book right now. And you just do that. You see the opportunities and you do that. There's no limit to doing these things and expanding your career, even if you're not technically working anymore. Um, you will probably really want your ambitions to align with your values because Jupiter has a lot to do with our beliefs, and you ideally want to have a vocation that is aligned to your ethical, moral inner compass. So if that's not fitting, if you've been working at a career field that has not been fulfilling in that way, you might strive to find a career or a job that aligns that in a more perfect way. So this is what I have for you, dear Libras. Let me know down in the comments how you're feeling, and I'm sending so much love and thank you for being here, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye. Okay, let me just take another sippy sip of my coconut water. Okay, Scorpio suns and Scorpio risings. Jupiter in Cancer is going to be going through your ninth house. And I'm sorry if that pause before was a bit awkward. I just realized like maybe it was 1 second too long. Regardless, I really like Jupiter going through a ninth house. Jupiter doesn't have its joy in the ninth house, but I feel like the ninth house, the topics of the ninth house are very Jupiterian-like because the ninth house has a lot to do with our beliefs and our worldviews and our inner moral compass and how the way that we believe in things shapeshifts the way we walk through this world. And expands itself and expands our world essentially. So I really love Jupiter and its exaltation traveling through your ninth house right there. The ninth house for me is a lot about questing, a lot about spiritual quests and the search for a grander and greater meaning, especially when Jupiter is traveling through there. So I would not be surprised if a lot of you, dear Scorpios, are in some sort of urge to search for a greater and larger whole that you want to connect to. Maybe it's through meditation, maybe it's through spiritual practices, maybe it's through traveling through a foreign and distant country and learning a new, completely new life philosophy that connects you to something you didn't know you needed to be connected to before. Because the ninth house is also so much about long distance travel and like a really like abroad travel, like overseas travel. Um, if you're traveling, dear Scorpios, highly recommend because Cancer is a water sign, travel somewhere near water. Travel somewhere near water, maybe even go diving or something like that. I feel like that's gonna really replenish you. Um, and there's a lot of how should I say this? At least I can say this for myself since I'm a Scorpio rising. So it might be helpful for some other Scorpios out there too. For me, being near water is so important. I get so much of my ideas and inspirations when I'm near water. It can even just be a waterfall, but it's like so important for me. I also love going to Croatia in summer and being just near the ocean. So if you're traveling, highly recommend going to a place that is nearby the ocean. Um, Maybe even during Cancer season, which is happening soon around like summer holidays, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. I feel like that might just be really beneficial and you might find new meaning, or just how you can explore and go through life. Water has a very, dissolving quality. It can really dissolve our identity in some sort of way. Um, and I feel like that can then lead to very meditative experience. I mean, floating on water can be a meditative experience in and of itself. So, hikey, again, recommend doing that. Or just like any sort of meaningful travel, it can also be a pilgrimage. Can also be a pilgrimage for sure. Just something where you feel like I can find myself there. And sometimes we can. Like sometimes we find new parts of ourselves that we can integrate in a new sort of way when we get in touch with new cultures and ways of being. And you also have Jupiter is also ruling your fifth and your second house. So it might give you inspiration and like a creative inspiration, how you express yourself creatively and how maybe that in turn can give you or you can create value and you can make money from off of that. So don't knock off that. And again, the luck part of Jupiter might come in handy here as well, where it's like traveling through like the right place at the right time. Like you might be surprised. I feel like for a lot of Scorpios, wherever you travel, you might meet a special person. You might meet your next creative adventure, somebody that really helps you out. You just be surprised. The ninth house is also a lot about our like mentors and like gurus and people that we meet, which is also very Jupiter-like, right? Like in Vedic astrology, Jupiter is literally referred to as the guru planet. So sometimes we can meet beneficial mentors or gurus that come into our life during that time, which again could happen. Maybe you're traveling abroad and you meet this special mentor-like person that can really expand you and grow you in ways you wouldn't have imagined otherwise. So I feel like this is a very good time. Again, could also like, in a more like shadowy side be like that you meet someone that is um I kind of want to say like a fake guru, but these people that are just like promote themselves as greater than they actually are. There is also a danger of perhaps falling in um a sort of like a cult, where you're like, oh, to be part of this community, you have to only do this and this and this, and then you're going to expand yourself, but you're not allowed to talk to these types of people. All of that. That could be a bit of a danger I could see here. Um, Again, traveling through the ocean is nice. Jupiter and Cancer expanding the oceans could also lead to, danger. The ocean expanding, like floods, stuff like that. Um, so there could be a danger of you going to an area that is flooded. Again, though, since the Jupiter has a lucky protective quality, I do feel like it could also protect you from that. Like maybe you go there and then you leave and like the flood happens just one day later or something like that. So, but I did just want to mention that. I did just want to mention that. Also higher education. Maybe you're like, I want to study something new. I want to study something that is nourishing to my soul, to my emotions, where I feel free. So, good time to study marine life or something like that, probably. But yeah, or you could also get really lucky in getting accepted to the college. Maybe there's some younger people listening, but it doesn't matter. Like you can go study back whenever the heck you want. And I feel like that's also Jupiter in the ninth. If you're in your 40s, who cares? Go study. Like if something is calling you, go freaking study, even if it's abroad, okay? And you might get extremely lucky in which universities you get accepted to, which courses you get accepted to. So don't knock it off. It could really expand your whole world in ways you have never thought it would. This is what I have for you, dear Scorpios. I'm sending you so much love, and I wish you a blessed Jupiter and Cancer transit. And I talk to you soon. Bye. Okay, okay. Sagittarius and Sagittarius risings, welcome to your Jupiter in Cancer horoscopes. And yeah, Jupiter in Cancer is going to travel through your eighth house. Certainly a more tricky house, just because the eighth house is an aversion to the ascendant. So, you can't like fully see it. But this is also the good thing about that, or the good thing about benefics traveling through these more difficult and harsh houses is that it lets us see these difficult topics in a different way, that we can actually solve them perhaps for the first time ever. The eighth house, the eighth house in ancient astrology is also called the idle place. It has a lot to do with um, stuck movements and emotions that are hard to deal with, that feel like limbo. A lot of the eighth house topics feel like limbo. Jupiter is about expansion. It's very opposite of that, which can be good, can be bad. I can see it going both ways, right? Like in one way, it's super pleasant because you can probably suddenly heal certain things and emotions that have been stuck, have been feeling stuck in your body for a long while. At the same time, expansion is scary and is a lot to handle for our nervous systems. A lot of the difficult eighth house emotions deal with anxiety, um, grief, shame, um, everything that gets like kind of stuck and keeps us in the loop. So we need safe environments to process that with. The eighth house also people. So I would not be surprised, dear Sagittariuses, if you meet and encounter people in your life that can actually help you heal these more difficult emotions and feelings. Especially if there has been any sort of trauma or hurts in relationships. We can only heal damages in relationships through new relationships, new experiences through relationships. Like there's only so much that you can heal yourself, and then you need to go out and heal these things with other people and make new experiences. And this is very scary. This is why the eighth house is so intimate, because these power dynamics and things that have been disrupted are just like no joke. Like it's not easy. It is not easy. Um, and dear Sagittarius, is you have I feel like you have one of the most interesting transits this year, I feel like, because so much of it is focused on these interesting houses. First of all, Jupiter is your ascendant ruler. So, like, it has so much to do with you. Secondly, you have Uranus entering Gemini into your seventh house. So, there's a big like emphasis on like new people entering in your life, like new unexpected people entering your life. You have Neptune and Saturn in your fifth house, which is all about creativity and play, romance, dating. Um, and then Jupiter is in the eighth house. And I'm just like, isn't that so interesting? Like, there's just this like huge emphasis on other people dating, like power play dynamics. It's really like what other people are bringing into your life. And at the same time, it's also about you because Jupiter is your ruler. I think it's like I feel like you're just going through a very interesting time right now, dear Sag risings. Um, and the eighth house, at least eighth house synastry, is a lot about like karmic entanglements and encounters. So I would not be surprised if you meet people that, first of all, also because of Uranus in your seventh house, that you did not expect to meet, that you did not expect to be attracted towards. You are a naturally explorative sign, so it does come more natural to you, and you might be more open to it than some other signs. Um, but intimacy is scary for you. I know that. Like you're not you're a sign that likes to be a bit more detached and live on the fun side of things. But Saturn in the fifth is like we can have fun, but in a responsible way. So this is gonna be super interesting. I feel like y if you can let yourself go there, if you can let yourself explore these darker parts of yourself with a person, you could unlock new worlds, new ways of feeling safe, um, and having fun, um, with people you probably didn't expect to. That, like, I feel like just your life could go into a direction you never thought it would go. And I mean that in the best way possible. Um, and again, the eighth house can feel karmic because it is about things other people owe us. And that's why it also feels so out of control because it's so hard to control what other people do, right? Um, what other people owe us can be money, can be, especially in Cancer, emotional things. Can be like these feelings of like a past life connection or whatever, where it feels like, oh, they owe me something emotional. Could also just be this life where all of a sudden you get that apology of a person like from 10 years ago. And like it heals something with like it heals some sort of void inside of you that you didn't even know you still had. So all of these like karmic entanglements where it just feels like for some reason I need to go through this with this person. I don't know why, but this just needs to happen. Since the eighth house is also about other people's money, um, and Jupiter is a benefic in its exaltation in Cancer, could also be that you get very lucky in the money you inherit. Um, it's a great time also to maybe write your will, or if you have family members that have not done that, to perhaps do that at that time. It's a bit of a touchy subject, so I don't want to like, just say this things. But it could be a time that is beneficial to do that. Um, or again, you get a very generous inheritance from somebody you didn't even expect it to. Again, Uranus in the seventh, right? Like you just get an inheritance, like what? Like I didn't even know. Or you meet another person that has a lot of money or something like that. That could also be Jupiter in the eighth house. Like another person becomes a benefactor to you, becomes a lucky force in your life. Um, the benefic planets in the tricky houses, they're still gonna bring up the topics from these houses, but they have the potential in turning that into something very lucky. For example, I'm just coming off from Jupiter in Gemini traveling through my eighth house. Now I obviously know that Jupiter in Gemini is in its detriment. It's a very different quality than Jupiter in Cancer. But for example, for me, what happened also around last June when I think Jupiter was conjoining the new moon in Gemini or Mars. I'm not 100% sure anymore, but I had one of the worst panic attacks of my life. So, again, anxiety, very eighth housey. Uh, all of this, and it's also because I do have the moon in my eighth house, but all of this made me realize how much I'm hiding my emotions, how I'm truly feeling, and that this is the cause of my anxiety. And because I underwent through that, then I was able to find new sort of help, much better help. My insurances got a lot better. I received more beneficial money and help. Um, but it came from something difficult. So this is sometimes what benefic in the eighth house or one of the difficult houses can do. Like it can lead with something that is very difficult, but because of that hardship, you gain so much more through that. Um, so I could totally see something like that happening for you, dear Sag, just like maybe some sort of trauma resurfaces or something like that, but it leads you to ultimately find better help, find the right people that are actually healing and nurturing to you, that can actually help you soothe your anxiety. But this wouldn't have been possible if this didn't happen before. Like, you know what I'm saying? Um, that's why I also wrote here like growth through the discomfort of intimacy. Okay, there's something that is extremely vulnerable about just like sharing that part of ourselves, but this can ultimately lead through greater intimacy and this is that uncomfortable Jupiterian growth, Like growth can be scary, but it's so, so, so necessary. And I feel like a lot of the eighth house, especially Jupiter in Cancer going through your eighth house, is going to be about you learning to receive. You learning to receive love and care and things that people want to bring into your life. You might even be overwhelmed, That's like the negative side of Jupiter in Cancer. Like maybe all of a sudden people want to shower you with gifts and bring things into your life, and you're like, no, stop. Like, I can't handle this anymore. But yeah, this is what I have for you, dear Sagittariuses. I wish you a lovely, beautiful Jupiter in Cancer transit. I'm sending you so much love, and I talk to you soon. Bye. Okay, I'm back from another quick break, and now we're going to talk about Capricorn Suns and Capricorn Risings. So, welcome to your Jupiter in Cancer horoscope. I appreciate you being here. Okay, Capricorns? I feel like I haven't said this to any other signs, but I feel like maybe you might need it the most, and that's why it just came up. So I sincerely appreciate you being here. The and maybe you need to hear this a lot more, especially with Jupiter traveling through your seventh house. So, the seventh house obviously is about the other. It's the house that is opposing our ascendant house. So, if the first house is about ourselves, the seventh house is about like the other person. And sometimes even seventh house transits can talk about our partners or the people we are close to. It's like close one-on-one relationships, okay? It can be partnerships. But partnerships can mean a lot of things. It can be romantic, but it can also be in a different relational styles, can also be a deep friendship that can also be intimate, even going through therapists. Like therapy sessions are also very seventh housey because they are where we are more intimate than usual with people. And intimacy does not have anything necessarily to do with being naked. And Cancer, ruling your seventh house is a great reminder for that. The intimacy is where we feel safe to share our emotions. So, with whom do you feel safe to share your emotions and your emotional well-being? I know that as Capricorn risings, that is something that has not come natural to you, and or usually something you're very, very selective about. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's actually very good to be selective in who you let into your emotional world. Um, but if you don't have anyone, it's like something to seriously, seriously question. Because even if we are selective, I feel like we need at least one person or maybe two or three people we feel generally safe with, emotionally, we can talk to. So it's going to be very important for you to establish that. Um, and, it might be somebody else that is that Jupiterian figure that comes into your life and learns or like where you can learn to share your emotions more comfortable with them. Like that person might be the benefacting person that enters your life, and you're like, oh wow, I never thought I would meet a person that I just feel so emotionally and safe with, and like on a body-based level, I just feel like super connected with them. Because like that is what constitutes of intimacy, truly, and that's what we want to also strive for, you know. The seventh house also has to do with like marriages, because okay, the seventh house I feel like is actually a very interesting place, because the marriage thing, at least in ancient astrology, comes from the fact that the seventh house is where the descendant is, because the descendant is opposed the ascendant, and it's where the sun sets. So the sun falls into the earth, and there's like the marriage. That's why the seventh house talks a lot about like sex and the act of sex and intimacy. But again, it does not just have to be that. And but it's also, that's why it was a symbolism of marriage, right? Because in a lot of ways, in a lot of cultures, marriage was the symbolism of like, yes, this is the person I'm like giving myself to emotionally, but also in a bodily type of way. So if you are in a relationship, you know, the Jupiter traveling through the seventh might be a time where a big proposal happens from another person. Um, or you are planning a big marriage. It's definitely a good time to plan a marriage. If any of you watching happened to have planned your marriage around the Cancer new moon, where the Sun and Jupiter also come together, I bless your soul, because that, I feel like that's like the best election you could have elected intuitively in a way. And I give you my blessings for this to last a long time. But again, it might be like, you know, like the urge to have a big marriage and a big celebration, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's cool. I love that. And again, you might be experiencing a lot of healing and abundance in relationships. You know, abundance is something that does not come easy to you, dear Capricorns, because you're ruled by Saturn. That is the opposite of abundance. Saturn is more about frugality, which also has its time and space. But it is something that you can learn, right? The seventh house and the topics of the seventh house is often a lot of things that we can learn from other people. It doesn't come natural to us, but we can learn them from other people. And so I feel like you might be very lucky with the people that come into your life, because they can really teach you, uh, like, like it's, hey, it's safe to feel more abundant. Like it's, you don't have to live so frugally. Like maybe open yourself up a bit more and like see how you can expand yourself and your world through other people. You know, so I feel like that's a really good time for that. And again, also what I wrote, like again, others being benefactors to us. Like it doesn't all, nothing always just depends solely on us. And I know as a Saturn ruled sign, you often, I feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Jupiter and Cancer in your seven is gonna be like, but do you have to? Like, do you genuinely have to do that? And the answer is no. The answer is no. And the invitation here is simply, what happens if you let go of that a bit more and learn, dare I say it, to lean on others a bit more and receive more, not just give, but receive. Often you are a sign that likes to give to other people. Okay, something that I really dislike that people say about Capricorns is that they are sometimes frugal. I'm sure that can happen. In my experience, so many Capricornian people I know are the most generous people out there. Um, Even if the way they do it might seem a bit cold, they are extremely protective, especially to the people that they love. Okay, they really deeply nurture and care for them. Um, it's just sometimes maybe in a more materialistic way, you know. Sometimes I feel like Capricorns are like you don't even know, like I'm doing all this work and doing extra hours so that we can then go on vacation, but you like, you don't even realize that you're just like at home being like, oh, they never have time for me. Like you don't realize oftentimes what Capricorns are doing and sacrificing for you, because they never say it. So, you know, maybe learn to say that a bit more, dear Capricorn risings. Like maybe learn to just be a bit more open about what you're doing. Um, And you'd be surprised, you'd be surprised at how reciprocated you would feel, and also how much other people also want to give to you, okay? Like how much safety you also deserve to feel. Um, so I think a big chunk of this is also learning to receive, okay? Learning to receive. And again, it's probably something that can also feel a bit overwhelming. There is a growing pain there, true. Too, growth through others can feel very uncomfortable, can feel like a very big leap of faith, which is very Jupiterian. Okay, the leap of faith is very, very Jupiterian keyword here. Um, there's a trust that needs to be established first, where we can feel like we can actually even take that leap of faith with another person. But this is exactly what you are being not tested on, but just it's like, are you willing to do it? Are you willing to do it? And then a lot of amazing, interesting things can probably happen into your life. But again, it's overwhelming and you need other people to first feel safe around to be able to do that. But yeah, now I feel like I'm just repeating myself, so I'm gonna cut it off here. Um, Dear Capricorns, I'm sending you so much love. Learn to receive it. And yeah, um, I wish you a wonderful, blessed Jupiter in Cancer transit and talk to you soon. Bye. Okie dokie. Aquariusi. No, sorry, Aquarius suns and risings. Um, Jupiter in Cancer is traveling through your sixth house. The sixth house is also a more difficult house because it's an aversion to the ascendant. It means you don't see it clearly. It doesn't form a major aspect to you, to your ascendant, so to say, which can then make it a bit tricky. But I really like the benefics traveling through these more difficult houses because they can make us aware of certain things that are otherwise a bit more difficult to do um, or to see because again it's more invisible. These topics are usually a bit more invisible, and the sixth house, I often refer to the sixth house as the Sisyphus house because it talks about all the things that we just kind of have to do in life. It's the metaphorical house of washing the dishes every day and doing that. And so I feel like, and that's what I wrote here, I really like that quote or that sentence, finding purpose in the mundane life and tasks. Um, as Camus wrote, we must imagine Sisyphus happy. um, we must imagine truly. But I do feel like there is a component of, finding God and divinity throughout the daily and the mundane tasks because it's there where it gets revealed if you are ready for the other things. Because if you cannot find, the joy and the pleasure in this mundane tasks, everyday tasks, it's going to be very hard to do it otherwise. It's going to be very hard to do it otherwise. And that is astrology too. Okay. That is astrology too. It's like, can you fall in love with life when you have to wash the dishes every day? And how can you make that more joyful and pleasurable or abundant? Um, because you can, like, and that's maybe really also the question, like, how can you make this mundane task seem more abundant and conducive to your own spiritual and like just general growth in your life? Because depending on what you're doing, and the sixth house has a lot to do with rituals, has a bit more to do with rituals that are that we don't like to do so much, right? It's not so much a third house, like the rituals that are conducive to us. Obviously, they also are in the sixth house, but it's more like because the sixth house talks about health and disease, and it's like the same coin from different sides. So it's like things we have to do, like the supplements we have to take every day to establish a good health, the exercises we need to do every day. It's like a lot of prevention actually happens in the sixth house. And you had Mars in Cancer traveling through your sixth house when it's retrograde and everything. If there have been any sort of health issues coming up, then now Jupiter in Cancer, I feel like, is really giving you like a good period to find good and great solutions. Maybe you're even lucky again. This Jupiter brings in luck, but look different in these harsh houses. That's what I just want to reiterate because it's sometimes we don't know. Okay, Jupiter serves as a protective force, and sometimes we don't really know necessarily what we are being protected of. And it could also be like you being lucky and finding the right practitioner to work for you, being lucky and finding the right treatment, or all of a sudden you get the right diagnosis. Like got the wrong diagnosis for years and years. All of a sudden you're lucky because the doctors find the right diagnosis and you can finally start treatment. Okay, like the harsh sixth house topics don't just go away because there's a benefic going there, but it increases the luck in these topics that are entering into your life that are a bit more harsher. Um, when Jupiter was in Aries going through my sixth house, actually, it was I was so lucky to find a great workplace to work where I could really expand and grow as a spiritually inclined person. It was like, and I was so lucky to find that workplace. It came to me through such interesting circumstances, and that is also so sixth house. Okay, it's work. It's like something that isn't necessarily extremely fun to do and wake up and go to. But I had the best time during Jupiter in Aries traveling through my sixth house. So this is perhaps something I can definitely also see coming in your life, dear Aquariuses. So be like on the lookout for that. Um, Jupiter often brings things to us. We don't have to do so much, but we have to be open to receive them. We have to like declare like it's a I feel like there's a bit of a like manifestation thing going on there with Jupiter, and that's also the luck part of Jupiter because the luck is preparation meets opportunity. You have to be prepared so that when the opportunity comes to you, which is Jupiter, you can actually take it. Otherwise, you're gonna self-sabotage it or whatever. Um, and the way that I got this job is I sat down every day. And I'm not sure if I was just writing or saying it out loud, but I was very much like, I'm working within four people whom I love, respect, and appreciate in a wonderful location where that is conducive to my spiritual growth and well-being, where I'm learning to feel safe in my body and in my work environment and earning good money, something along the lines of that. Um, and I don't want to talk too much about this because I'm not like, I'm not like trying to do an abundance course here or anything like that. But that was extremely important to me to get myself in that mindset so that then, when the opportunity came, I could take it. And it wasn't just me sitting in my room. I was also being active, okay? Like I was but that's also the lucky thing. Like opening the right website at the right time or casually dropping that you're looking for work in a conversation and then the right person listens and they're like, "Hey, I think I might have a job for you." That's the lucky component of Jupiter right there. Um, so yes, and you might also be inclined to just do some sort of work that because the sixth house is a lot about service, okay? But it is a lot of like strenuous service. It's not like the nicest service. It's something that we like to sacrifice for. This is why I call it the Sisyphus house, right? It's like pushing that boulder. You don't know why you have to push the boulder, but you know you have to do. It's the hardships that we overcome. That's why it's the joy of Mars. So maybe all of a sudden you get an inclination of wanting to do charity work, or even just like doing work for free or things like that, like where you're like in an organization or something. Um, I'm losing my words right now here in English, but I think you know what I'm trying to say here. This might be a very good time to do that. And you like, don't knock it off. Like you don't know. Maybe you meet people there that then also bring you other opportunities into your life. Like if you look at the world through a lens of abundance, you will trust that you'll always be at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing that you have to do. Even if in your mind you're like, oh, why should I do some charity work? Like you don't know. Maybe you meet somebody there that then introduces you to your future husband or wife. But there's like something of a trust that has to come here, which is also very Jupiter-like, a trust and a leap of faith of like trusting the hardships. Trusting the hardships. I feel like that's very Jupiter in the sixth house. Trusting the hardships of what you have to go through, that this will ultimately lead to something higher and greater for your good. And again, you might also be inclined to do more supportive rituals for your health and healing journey. So getting the right supplements, getting the right practitioners, doing the right exercises and practices, maybe something to do with water. Okay, maybe like water shiatsu, that's something I love that. I haven't done it in a long time, but it was extremely beneficial to me. I feel like there's all sorts of water therapies and things like that. Maybe you also are just inclined to start researching drinking water, and you're like, oh wait, the water I'm drinking isn't so good. I want to change that. Lots of, water, the waters of life. It's no coincidence that it's called the waters of life because it's a life-giving thing. So, or, maybe even just spending time near the ocean could be extremely healing for you if you've been going through a sort of disease or illness, things like that. Or like, bathhouses, like cures. Oh, that's not, I don't think that's exactly how it's called in English, but there's like cures, right, that you can do where you like go to a bathhouse and you go into like salt water, like hot water or iodine water or things like that. So look into that. Okay, look into that. That might be something that is very interesting and can potentially be very healing for you, dear Aquariuses. And this is all I have for you now. I wish you a lovely and pleasant Jupiter in Cancer transit. I'm sending you so much love and talk to you soon. Bye. And last but not least, Pisces. I swear, okay, next time, whatever, maybe in the Uranus episode, we're just gonna switch it up and I'm gonna make y'all the first sign to talk about. But today, I'm sorry, but you're last but not least again. Um, in any case, Pisces, I am so, so, so excited for you because this is such a homecoming. First of all, you just, got Saturn and Neptune outside of your first house for the first time in a long time. Your ruler, your ascendant ruler, Jupiter, is going into Cancer in its exaltation in your fifth house, which is like such a lovely house. I'm like, Pisces, if you've been freaking struggling the past few years, things are about to turn. I know that Saturn and Neptune are both retrograding this year and going back into your first house. Um, but I do think it's going to be so much more pleasant with Jupiter in Cancer, even the retrograde period, because, Jupiter in Gemini was a lot harder for you, especially also in the fourth house. The fourth house isn't specifically a difficult house, but it is squaring your ascendant. And it's just more like, if your ascendant ruler is in a detrimental position, it is just harder to go through. And so I do feel like it's a big homecoming for y'all. Also with the North Node in your first house, like you're all ready to freaking grow and expand. Okay, like Saturn left your first house, like I'm ready to take off that weight and turn into a different person. Um, and the fifth house is such a joyous place. Okay, the fifth house is also the joy of Venus. It's not the joy of Jupiter, but I love, Jupiter being there. I feel like that Jupiter-Venus conjunction that is happening, I think sometime in August or July this year. I'm not sure. I talked about it in the beginning when I was going through the transit timeline. This is gonna be such a lovely transit for you. Definitely. Um, at the same time, the fifth house, like the expansion that happens, can also be overwhelming. Like just from experience, when Jupiter, Venus, Neptune in Pisces all conjoined, not conjoined, sorry, trined exactly my sun and ascendant in Scorpio. I had like such a weird time, like I had such a weird panic attack in my life, which then did land me to expand things in my life, but it was an unpleasant moment at first. But the fifth house is a lot about the present moment and how the present moment expands us, like if we are present, into something greater and better than us. And this is where a lot of the creativity play comes in. It's a great time to read The Artist's Way. Okay, it's here. It is here. The book is here. By the way, I read it before Dochi. I think actually we might have read it at the same time. Um, But first of all, this is so cool because my mom got this book gifted to her. So this is like the first edition of this book. Like this is such an old edition of this book. But it's definitely a great time to do or read The Artist's Way. Um, Even though, like y'all are already creative by nature most of the time, like you're Pisces risings. Um, but it might be a well, structure to say structured is kind of wrong here, but let me put it this way, because Saturn and Neptune are now in your second house, and you need to get really serious about like how you're making money, and taking your talents and abilities serious. And I feel like Jupiter in Cancer is really going to let you see that, like let you see that your creative talents and abilities are no joke. But you have to see it first, and then you can start charging real money for that. Like that's going to be so important. Um, and I want you to have that, okay? Like I don't want you to live on like a starving artist basis. Like we're not doing that. So there's definitely lots of like creative opportunities coming into your life. And again, the fifth house has a lot to do with pregnancy and fertility. Um, can be in a literal, can also be in a metaphorical way. Let's first talk about the metaphorical way, because the Cancer, especially Jupiter in Cancer, is a lot about ideas impregnating us. And I feel like ideas, they talk about this in The Artist's Way. Liz Gilbert talks a lot about this in Big Magic, another book I can highly, highly recommend when it comes to creativity. Ideas are living entities and beings. They come knocking to our doors for specific reasons because we are the vessels, for whatever way, to be able to execute them. If we don't answer that call, the idea that's a living entity hops onto the next person and is like, okay, well, if you don't want to birth me, I'm gonna go to some other vessel that is gonna do that. So you have to take the opportunities, okay? And this is what the lucky component is of Jupiter. It's preparation meets luck, or luck. I mean, no, sorry, I said that wrong. Opportunity meets preparation. Or preparation means opportunity. Gosh, I'm butchering this so much. I think it's preparation meets opportunity. Yeah, now I got it right. Um, so if you aren't prepared for that growth and expansion that is coming on their way, you can potentially butcher a lot of creative opportunities and abilities. Because if that idea of you writing a book comes into your life, you better start writing that book down. Otherwise, that idea is going to hop off and search a different vessel. Um, and you don't want that. Or maybe you do, maybe you do. It doesn't matter so much. It's just like, what do you do with it? Like, are you going to execute it or not? And it's like it's up to you if you want to do it or not. But best believe that if certain ideas do come knocking at your door, they're come knocking at your door for a reason. Um, Again, then to a literal way, the fifth house can also be a time for literal pregnancy. It's a good time to get pregnant if that is something you are, like if you're in a partnership, and you're looking to get pregnant, like no matter constellation, right? There's many ways of getting pregnant, or even raising a children. It could also be an adoption, because the fifth house also talks about children in general. So, it is definitely a fertile time to get pregnant and have a pregnancy. Um, I guess, Jupiter in Cancer, I'm just like, I would not be surprised if, for whatever way, you're like, oh, heck, like, now I'm getting twins. I just wanted one child. Um, but yeah, it's not going to happen to everyone, but it is a good time for pregnancies for sure. It's usually a time we recommend. It depends on which position Jupiter is in, but Jupiter in Cancer, its exaltation is probably like the best position to carry out a pregnancy. Um, or again, if you already have kids, it might be a good time to expand, or enrich in your relationship with your kids. Maybe they're growing all of a sudden. It's interesting. We get our first Jupiter return at around 12, 13. It's when we start our teen years. It's when we start growing and expanding. Our hormones, right? Jupiter rules over some of our hormones. Our hormones go all crazy. Growth hormones, especially, go all crazy. Women grow breasts. Men grow beards all of a sudden. So it's interesting. Like Jupiter really has that interesting component. So if you do have a child that is in like its teen phase, especially also going through the Jupiter return. Interesting thing to observe what's going on. There's also a lot that we can learn through that. Or we can also just deepen our relationships. Or maybe you have, maybe you're older, and your children are already older, like your kids are in their 20s or something. It could also be that your kids are getting kids, so that you are becoming a grandmother or a grandfather. That could also be that transit. Like the family expands. Um, Again, the fifth house also has to do with like dating and romance, so you might get very like lucky in your romantic adventures and encounters. And like you just have a lot of fun dating around. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like it's cool. I admire people that actually like dating. Um, Abundant leisure, that's also what I wrote down. Because the fifth house is everything that brings us joy and fun in life, that doesn't necessarily bring us money. It's really from a recreational perspective. And I often think of that Robin Williams quote he says in Dead Poet Society of like, but romance, love, poetry, these are things we stay alive for. So the fifth house is everything we stay alive for, everything that enriches our life. And so it's like, what does enrich your life? What does enrich your life? Um, and the fifth house is obviously enshrined with your ascendant. It's also again Jupiter's the ruler of your ascendant. Also, highly recommend going near bodies of water. I feel like there's a lot of creative inspiration you could find there. You're a water sign, so you probably already like being nearby water. But I do feel like just if you aren't, there could be a very good and replenishing time to do so and find your creativity. Like, maybe just go to a waterfall and draw there, and you'd be surprised what happens, like what comes out of you. And again, like the question overall is like, what is a fulfilling creative and recreational life? Like, what does it constitute of? And what do I need to feel content in life? Um, so yeah, I feel like that's what I have to say for you, dear Pisces. And I wish you a lovely, beautiful Jupiter in Cancer transit. I'm sending you all much love and talk to you soon. Bye bye bye. Um, Okie dokie. Let me take another sip of water. Hoo, hoo, hoo. Okay, we're at the last slide right now. Um, this is just for you to stay connected if you want to. First of all, again, subscribing to this channel is super helpful and beneficial. I'm doing a lot of horoscopes videos right now, so if that's what you're into, consider maybe subscribing. I also do weekly overviews, but I do also definitely like doing in-depth talks of like planetary archetypes and things like that. So if you're into that, consider, joining the resonance fam. Um, I'm also super active on Instagram, which is resonance.astrology. And I do also just want to link my Reddit because these are some of my humble beginnings, I guess, and I'm sometimes still more or less active there. Haruka, a completely different username, but it's my previous username. I can't change it anymore. My email is resonanceastrology.com. My website is also no, sorry, that's my website. My website is resonanceastrology.com. My email is resonanceastrology@gmail.com. Um, and again, I'm also on Spotify. The podcast episodes are on Spotify. So and just recently finished the House series, which by the way, actually, let me literally shout that out because it's like for free here on YouTube, and it's like just if you want to gain more knowledge. Um, if Jupiter is traveling through any of the houses, you heard me talk about, you're like, I want to learn more. I want to know more about the eighth house, the seventh house, the fifth house. I have a playlist on all the 12 houses. All the 12 houses are done now. We just recently released the 12th house episode, which ended and rounded up the series. So, go check out the respective houses. If you're curious what Jupiter in Cancer in your 10th house means, go check out the episode on the 10th house, and you will gain a much deeper and clearer understanding of what that house specifically means in your life, in your chart. So, highly recommend doing that. These podcast episodes are on YouTube and on Spotify, but on YouTube, I do also post other things like these horoscope type of videos that are not available on Spotify. Um, yeah, you can find me through my website. You can shoot me a DM through Instagram. My readings are currently closed, but you can still write me an email. There's just a bit of a wait time. So I need to wait till I can like open my bookings again. But you can still write me if you're interested, and I can like put you on the wait list. So that's what I have there. Liking super helps some more than you know. Commenting as well. I'm always just curious, and like if you feel shy, you can also again write me an email or shoot me a DM on Instagram. Um, just like talk to me, like I'm not going to answer specific chart questions, but if you just have like a general question, like please just ask, I'm happy to help out. Or even here on YouTube, like just comment, I'm super just curious to read comments because astrology happens in real life, in real life transits. Um, and that's really what for me astrology is all about. So yeah, this is what I have for you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate and love you all so much. And I wish you all a lovely, blessed Jupiter in Cancer transit. And I hope to see you guys and talk to you guys soon. Much love. Bye.